discussing module 3 of the organic chemical technology course. Already you have discussed about the introduction to pulp and paper making, raw materials for pulp and paper making, pulping and bleaching process, and the recovery of the chemicals. Now in the lecture 4 we will be discussing about the stock preparation, the paper making, because it is called the paper making is a art, and the stock preparation and paper making is a very important. You can say this is the heart of the any paper industry, and because we are making a large variety of the paper, starting from the conventional writing paper or the tissue paper to the abrasive paper, coated paper, insulated paper, and the various quality. Already I have discussed the various quality of the various type of the paper which we need the currency note, we need the board, triplex board, duplex board, or simply board paper, and so the variation, carbonless paper, all those variety. So it is called the paper making is an art. So the paper making, that consists of the two parts, and that is the stock preparation, the paper making, and both are the combine, and the because we start whatever the pulp we are getting from the pulping or bleaching, that is the kraft and bleach pulp, it is not suitable for making the paper. That has to imparted some property so that the paper sheets we can make. Draining of the water, that may be done, adding of the additive, color, sizing, all those material that is being done in the stock preparation. Even the waste paper, because the utilization of the waste paper that has increased nowadays, and so now we are using huge amount of the waste paper, and similarly the pulp which we are getting, that has to be further cleaned for paper making. So all those processes that is taking place in the stock preparation, and then finally after the stock preparation, after beating, refining, that is going to the paper making. So this will be the coverage of the lecture, introduction to the stock preparation and paper making, a stock preparation part, and in the stock preparation there will be beating, refining, sizing again internal and external sizing, acid and alkaline sizing. Paper machine we are using, because depending upon the quality of the paper we are using the different type of machine, Fourdrinier machine, Yankee machine, mold machine, sometimes it may be combination of the Fourdrinier and mold. Then finally will be what are the various characteristic of the paper testing part, because the quality of the paper, it is continuously evaluated, and even the consumers have become more cautious, and they are having their also own testing lab, so that the manufacturer may not manipulate the things, and so the depending upon the quality, sometimes rejection is also there. Paper consists of a matted or felted sheet of the fibers formed from the water suspension of a fiber. The pulp obtained from pulp mill, as I told you, after washing, screening and bleaching, are not yet satisfactory for making of the paper. The pulp require further processing to develop good fiber bonding and impart several characteristics like surface smoothness, sizing, color, addition of the some of the retention aids, all those things that is we are doing in case of the stock preparation, and that is very important section in case of the paper making. This require addition of the sizing chemicals. Again, as I told you, that the sizing may be internal or the external sizing, color and additives, because we are manufacturing wide variety of the colored paper also, and other chemicals for foam and pith. That is the control, that is very important in case of the, because sometimes the foaming tendency is also there. Retention aid that we need for the retention of this, some of the chemicals which are adding also the wastage of the more fines in the form of the wastewater. So that has to be avoided, and so we are using the retention aid. And this is about the stock preparation, that is the stock preparation, the waste paper processing, and the paper making. These are the two important sections in case of the paper making. Cellulose fiber which we are getting after the bleaching or the pulp must be subjected to mechanical treatment before they can be made into paper and board. So the process which we are using for the mechanical treatment of the pulp, that is the beating and refining. Beating and refining is done to develop good fiber bonding and the high paper strength. If the proper beating and refining is not there, then the fiber strength or the paper strength that will go down, and the proper paper making will be not there. So, that is very important. This is the process we are using in the case of the stock preparation and bleach. In case of the kraft pulp or bleach pulp, that is going to stock preparation, where the beating, refining, then the centi cleaning, and the finally after the centi, in between it may be the requirement of the sizing is there, size paper, if you are making tissue paper, then unsized paper, all those things that is being done in case of the stock preparation. And finally after addition of all those chemicals, additives, fillers, because sometimes in case of the many of the paper we need the fillers also, because that reduces the cost. Also they are helping in the better fiber bonding and improving the quality, just like if you are using the talcum or the titanium dioxide, all those things that is being used. So, even coating is also done. So, coating part is finally it is been after the making of the paper, but the bleach pulp that is going to stock preparation, centi cleaning, that will be here, the rejects will be removed, and then finally the pulp that will go to the machine, and the waste water that will go to the effluent treatment plant, and then the paper, final paper that will go to the cutting, railing, all those processes are there. This is about the, I was telling, because now the many of the mills are only this diagram, the flow process will be there. There will be no recovery, there will be no pulping, and so they will be they are processing only waste paper, and the number of mills are now in India, they are having a very high capacity plant based on the waste paper, as high as 400 tons per day or even more. And so this is the waste paper that is going to duster for the removal of the dust, because the waste paper that will, again, the quality of the waste paper, that will depend the what type of the paper we are collecting, the waste paper, office paper or the from the packaging paper, that may not get major problem, but if you are having the road sweeping from where from the municipal waste we are collecting paper, so definitely that will have the lot of the impurities. Sorting is very important. Sometimes even the coated papers are also there, some of the plastic materials are also, all these things that we are doing in the for sorting that is being done, or the dusting, that duster, the dust remover, then fines removal that is there, then it is going to pulper, and from the pulper it is going to the vibrating skin, centi cleaning. Here the centi cleaning with the series of the 3-4 stages are there, and finally after that it is going to the stock preparation, where again the same activity which we are doing in case of the paper, the pulp, virgin pulp they are doing, and then after that stock preparation, that is going to the paper machine. Paper making, that was the part of the stock preparation, and after the stock preparation, the paper making, that consists of the conversion of the pulp from stock preparation into a sheet of paper board, because depending upon the quality of the paper, we may need the furnace which we are using as a pulp, different furnace that may be required depending upon the quality of the paper, or different type of the machine that we are using. Board we may use the mold machine for tissue paper, another paper we may have the Yankum machine, or it may be the writing paper, may have the only the, and the paper that may be machine finish or machine glaze depending upon the requirement. So, we are using this 4 denier machine, mold machine, and now these are some of the machine that we are using there. This is actually the process which we are using in case of the paper. In the brief, I will go in detail about the paper making process, but this is the machine chest that we are having up. This is not actually machine chest. From this chest, the pulp which we are getting from this, that is going to final cleaning, but we are using this centi cleaners, and after the centi cleaner, the pulp is going to the machine chest, and from the machine chest, because here the consistency of the pulp is around 99%. Your water is there, 1%, less than 1% is very dilute pulp, means the consistency it may be 99.4, 90.5, 99.5, that is the water. So that is going to the machine, and then this is the wire part of the machine, and wire part of the machine, suction coach, table. So all these things are that may be their wire part, and after the wire part it will go to the cylindrical dryer, where the dryer we are using the steam for drying of the paper, and finally it will be the cutting, weighing, baling, depending upon the type of the paper. So this is the brief in about the paper making process. This is the, if you are seeing, this is a 4 linear machine, and these are the some of the equipment some that is being used in the pulp and paper mill equipment. This is the central cleaning, this is also the centric cleaners we call it, but it is nothing, it is a cyclone. Series of cyclones are there. Then we are having the machine chest, we are having the, this is the refiner part. In case of the, we are also having the disc refiner also, machine chest, all those equipments are there. These are the just various equipment that we are using in case of the paper. Now let us come to the stock preparation, beating and refining. This result in increase of the beating and refining, improves the bursting strength, folding endurance, smoothness, formation, other strength properties of the paper, which is very important. The process involves cutting of the fibers. However, it can also be made to do considerable fibrillation in case of the bars are on the rotor and the casing are wide, that is wide range, wide angle refiners. Even in case of the beating refiner, we are also using the disc refiner in the because the conventional is the beating and the conical refiner. Now in many of the mills they have also having the disc refiner. So in three type of the refining equipments we are using. One is the beater, and the conical refiners, and the third is the disc refiner, because in case of the disc refiner more informed is there, and the high capacity disc refiners are available. And even in case of the, because we have started using the hardwood pulp, and so the disc refiner they are giving better refining properties to the pulp. Beating and refining are the operation of mechanically treating the pulp fibers. Refining, because there is slightly difference in these two, but the purpose is same, because before coming of the refiner it was the only the beater, that was the olden Holland beater, that was the name given, and the beater, and then it came the refining, and then the disc refiner, conical refiner you can say. They usually refers to the fiber separation and cutting, whereas the beating action may include the above two effects and also fibrillation or the bursting strength. Sometimes it also helping the beaters we are using for addition of the various the feelers or retention aid or the color, that is also the operation that is being carried on the beating. The beating and refining the pulp is measured by freeness. Free pulp means that the freeness, that is very important characteristic while the making of the paper. Free pulp means drains readily, because the water, as I told you, the pulp at the consistency of about the 99% means the 1% pulp is there, 1% not 99.5% water that may be there. So the water has to be removed from the pulp during the paper making. So the slow pulp is there, so the slow drainage will be there. We may need the longer wire part, and even the proper running of the machine, that will be. So the free pulp drains readily. Freeness can also be defined as the water holding capacity of the fiber. Steps involved in the stock preparation are the refining, beating of the pulp stock through beaters or refiners, blending the refined stock in case more than one pulp furnace, because as I told you that we are making different type of different quality of the paper. So sometimes we are using the cotton linter pulp also, or Hessian pulps, in case especially the board where the high folding in endurance that is required. So the some of the are the sometimes the hardwood, softwood pulp is there, the good quality of the pulp is there, high strength pulp is there. So the blending the refining is in case the more than one pulp furnace which has addition of the chemicals to make suitable for the desired product of the paper and board, transferring the prepared stock of the pulp to the machine chest, and after the machine chest it will go to the machine and then the paper making process that will start. Beating, as I told you, the beating includes the fiber separation, cutting and evaporation of brushing effect. However, the action of the beater is primarily of the rubbing or the crushing nature. The operation of the beater, here we are maintaining about 5 to 6% consistency, means the 5 to 6% is pulp, rest is the water. The circulating power requirement is high in case of, and that is the reason why the it was beater to refiner or the disc refiner there. Beaters are important even for making special grade of the papers for the blending of the various furnish that is required, or the sometimes we need the color paper. So in one beater we can have the add the various coloring matter also. So that helps in the making the special grade of the papers. Beaters have been replaced with the refiner, as I told you, that has become more energy saving device, and which has advantage of the low space requirement, because the space required in case of a beater is very large. In case of the refiner, it is space requirement is less, it is less energy consumption over the conventional old beater. Refiners can be used on continuous basis where fiber flow parallel. Here actually the beaters are batch process, refiners are the continuous process. So in case of the fiber refiner can be used on continuous basis where fibers flow parallel to the bars of the rotor and stator, and the refining process that takes place. Refining refers to the fiber separation, because the what is happening, the pulp will have to make suitable for paper making, will have to improve the drainage property. So that is the cutting, conical refiners and disc refiner that we are using for this operation for refining. So disc refiner, as I told you, the refiner consists of rotating disc. We are having the two discs, grooves bars on either side, position between two stationary discs with grooves on the inner side. The stock is admitted through the two inlets and it passes outward. This refiner has higher power economy and requires 20 to 25% less power with very less space requirement than the conical. So it is more economical than the refiner also, and the capacity is high. This is the advantage in case of the disc refiner. So disc refiners are available with variety of the patterns of the configuration, resulting in different action like fibrillation. Short fiber pulp can be used to achieve better strength properties. Sometimes, as you told you, that in case of the newsprint, the short fibers also preferred, and so we are using the line series, the mechanical pump. Disc refiners can operate at 3 to 5% consistency and also at 30 to 40% consistency. So this is the how the variation is there. In case of the beaters, we are operating at 5 to 6% consistency. Changing of disc is easier with the simple maintenance. In case of these are the some of the advantages in case of the disc refiner, and all the new mills they are having the disc refiner, and the beaters you will find only in the old mills. Blending and mixing of the chemicals, that is the very important in case of the stock preparation. Stock preparation section that involves blending and mixing of rosin and alum, that is the sizing material. Although this is called the acid sizing, now we are going for the alkaline or the your neutral sizing. Loading materials, talcum powder, calcium carbonate, titanium oxide, all those materials that we are using as a loading material, as a filler in the paper, especially in the, as you take the case of the writing paper, you can go as high as 12 to 14% filler, that is the, so the cost depending upon the quality of the paper, whether we are using the talcum powder or the calcium carbonate. So dyes, whitening agent, starch, gum, sodium silicate, wax emulsion, all these things that is being added in the mixing chest. Refined pulp stock of required quantities taken, and chemicals are added according to grade of the paper and the board, because the, as you see, the requirement of the chemicals processing of the pulp, that will depend totally what type of the paper you are interested to make. So, depending upon the type of the paper you are making, you will have to go for the various processing stages in case of the stock preparation. Even sometimes if you are, suppose the waste paper is more. So, definitely the refining action, that less requirement will be there, that will be not at the severe condition that we are applying in case of the hardwood pulp. So, the waste paper, that may, even the requirement of the power, that will be less. So, that is the how the things are different depending upon the raw material, depending upon the furnace that will require. Suppose if you are having the cotton interpulp or the hosiery cuttings, then that may require longer refining or the beating time, because the one thing is the fiber length is high, and so they need more time for the making the paper suitable for. After that will be mixed with the virgin pulp. So, refined pulp stock of required quantity is taken and chemicals are added according to the grade of the paper, which I told you. The sizing, because the paper making fibers have a strong tendency to interact with the water due to the hydrophilic nature of the cellulosic fiber, and so the remember that our time we used to have the writing paper and the ink that was being used. So, feathering of ink, that was a very common phenomena when the ink was being used, although we are now using the ball pen, so that problem is not there, but during the, and so the blotting paper, that was being unsized paper. But if you want a resistance to water penetration, then sizing is done. So, sizing process imparts resistance to water penetration. Sizing makes the fiber surface water repellent by using chemical additives that we are using, that sizing alum and rosin, or it may be other AKD that may be there, or the neutral sizing material that may be used. So, then because you see in case of the, you take the case of the tissue paper, there the sizing is not required, there the moisture absorbance is more important. So, in case of the tissue paper, toilet tissue paper, we do not need the sizing, but in other grade of the paper, definitely sizing, that is very important. Even the sizing chemical, that will also differ from quality to quality of the paper. In unsized paper, liquid tends to spread out on the surface of the paper, and the process is called the feathering, which I told you when while using the ink, that was a major problem with the, because sometimes if the sizing was not proper, feathering of the ink, that was a common problem. So, various sizing agents like rosin, paraffin wax, wax derivatives, wax emulsions, and synthetic sizing chemicals like alkyl ketene dimer, that is AKD, and alkenyl succinate anhydride ASA are being used to make, and so that is what you call the AKD sizing or ASA sizing. So, this is the one of the new development in case of the sizing that is being used, and that is to make the paper reasonable hydrophobic, because so that is the requirement in case of the most of the grade of the paper except the tissue paper. Requirement of the good internal size. The size must be readily available and chemically stable. This is the one of the very important property. It must be possible to add in a form that ensure good and even distribution across the paper making process. The size must be retained in the wet end of the paper, because if it is lost, then definitely the paper quality that is going to be affected. So, retention of the sizing material, that is also very important. The molecules must orient themselves so that the hydrophobic end is away from the fiber. The size must be sufficiently hydrophobic so that the sizing is achieved in cost effective manner. The size must not cause unacceptable problem in paper and board manufacture. These are some of the requirement of a good sizing. So, again as I told you, the sizing, there may be internal sizing or the surface sizing, what we call, or the external sizing. So, both type of the, depending upon the requirement, that we are having this process. In internal sizing, the sizing chemicals are added and mixed in the pulp, whereas in the external sizing, the sizing chemical applied on the surface of the paper only. So, this is the how the difference in case of the internal sizing and the external sizing is there. So, in case of the sizing, mainly three types of the external sizing is used: acid sizing, neutral sizing or alkaline sizing. This is the AKD and SA which I was telling that has become now the there is shift in the from acid sizing to alkaline sizing, and lot of work that has been done even for the plant level. They have the data are available, and the advantage of the alkaline sizing over the conventional sizing, acid sizing, that has been well reported. Some of the weaknesses of the acid sizing are aging effect in paper, restriction of the calcium carbonate use, because you see the loading, that is also very important to reduce the cast. The corrosion in the machine, reduce brightness of the paper, and the high sizing cost. Sometimes the brightness of paper, that is because after keeping sometimes the brightness is reduced, so that is not required. So, the brightness should be retained for a longer time, and the high sizing cast in case of the alum and lodging. These are the some of the disadvantage, and at the same time lot of the corrosion problem is also because you are having the low pH, and because of the low pH and the alum, so the problem of the corrosion is there. And these are the some of the reason why acid sizing to alkaline sizing that has been done. So, for the acid sizing is still that is very common. So, acid sizing is most adopted sizing process in the paper industry since long, because it is cheap, reliable and reasonable effective. However, there has been interest in the alkaline and the neutral sizing in the recent year, and now the mills they have shifted from the your alum rosin sizing to the AKD or AKS sizing. So, from the conventional acidic system with the alum rosin sizing, the paper industry has changed to neutral sizing, dispersed rosin size, and alkaline sizing with synthetic sizing chemicals like alkyl ketene dimer and the alkenyl succinic anhydride. The driving force for this change is the process advantage, product improvement, and the environmental consideration. These are the some of the advantage why now everybody is talking about the AKD or ASA sizing. Advantage of the AKD sizing. These are the some of the advantages: increase in equipment life due to less corrosion at higher pH, increase in brightness and optical properties, increase in the permanency of the paper, increase in the machine clothing life due to less choking, gain in the machine runnability, because that is very important in case of the machine operation due to better drainage. If the drainage is poor, then definitely the running of the machine that will be affected, and the of the seat which you are getting that, and that will not have the proper strength. Good smooth feeling on the paper surface, reduction in the fluff. Now come to loading, because loading means the incorporation of the inorganic material into fibrous web to improve the quality. The principal fillers used are clay, talcum powder, calcium carbonate, titanium oxide, zinc sulfide, calcium sulfide. But the brightness of these fillers are very important, otherwise that will result in the brightness of the pulp, the duller side of it. So, always there is problem in some of the quality of these fillers are not good. So, the advantage of the filler, high degree of the whiteness, brightness, because if you see the titanium dioxide or even the calcium carbonate, the precipitated calcium carbonate, all those are having the high brightness. High index of refraction is small particle size is very small, low solubility in the water, high specific gravity than the cellulose. Coloring, because as we know, we are making the now the actually the color paper for the poster and the thing that has decreased, but poster paper, color poster paper, matchbox still that is being used. So, colored and even for the various quality of other grade paper we need the coloring. So dyes and colors are added to manufacture color paper. There are three types of the dyes normally we are using in the case of the paper, that is the acid dyes, basic dyes and the direct dyes. Whitening agent also, that we are using this compound also called the optical whitener, optical bleaching agents. The compound when added to the paper and board, it absorbs light in the ultraviolet range and remit it in the visible range, and so that is the sometimes the whitening agent is also added. Starch and gums are used for improving the physical strength properties of the paper and board due to the better bonding of the fibers, because the better finding of the bonding of the paper is very important. Refining energy is also reduced with this use. Sodium silicate, that also we are using sometimes. In the addition of the sodium silicate improve the stiffness, improve the furnace, reduce the fluff, increase the retention of the filler. It also help improving the ash percent and bursting strength. Sometimes wax emulsion is also used with the rosin size for reducing the rosin consumption per ton of the paper, because it is cheaper than the rosin as partial substitute of the rosin sometimes some mills are using. Now let us come, this was the part of the stock preparation, and after getting the different furnace of the pulp, and then now it is ready, after the stock preparation it is ready for paper making. So what are the steps involved in case of the paper making? The pulp from the stock preparation section, after beating and refining and centricling, enters to the manifold and then to the head box. That is the head box, that is the starting point of the paper machine. The function of the head box is to receive clean pulp stock at the consistency of 0.2 0.8%, means the rest is water. So you can imagine the how dilute pulp slide that we are distributing, and the drainage of the water, that is very important. And this from the head box it is distributed uniformly across the width of the wire part of the machine at constant head. So this is very important. We are using the three type of the machine normally: Fourdrinier machine, Yankee machine and the mold machine. This is the typical mold machine. When normally we are going to make, it may be number of molds that may be more. So what we are doing in case of the mold machine, normally that is being used when we are using the duplex board or triplex board, when the different type of the pulp furnace that we are using for the liner side, filler side, or the sometimes the triplex board, inside the filler board is there, and the outside of the white board is there, white paper is there. So that is the triplex board that we are having, and sometimes it is also combined with the cylindrical mold to the Fourdrinier part. So sometimes the combined machines also. This is the type of the another machine that we are having, that is the Fourdrinier, or the sometimes the also we call the Yankee machine. So the head box in case of the paper making, that may be the open head box or the pressurized head box. From head box, pulp flows to the paper machine. In paper making, two types of the paper machines are commonly used, as I told them, MF machine finish or machine glaze, because you might have seen the in some of the paper more glaze is there without doing any coating, the more glaze. So in that case the MG cylinders they are having, so the paper glaze paper we are getting and the roughness is not there. And the second type of the machine which we are using, that is the mold machine for making of the duplex board, triplex board or the board, because here the different layer that is combining, and then we are getting the 2 layers, 3 layers of the board, sometimes even the single board, because we know the high gram weight board, just like file board you take the case. then we need the higher ground width. So at that time some mold machine that can be used, or even the 14 machine also we are using for making of the file board paper. So already I discussed about the MF machine finish and machine glaze, that is the Yankee or combined machine that may be there. Fourdrinier machines are characterized at the vent end by a head box which delivers stock to moving woven wire part belt supported by table rolls, suction boxes, etc. They are there. These are the actually the various section in case of the Fourdrinier machine, that is the head box from where the pulp is distributed over the wire part, then the wire part where the major drainage of the water that is taking place, then the table roll, these are also helping in the supporting of the wire, suction couch where the vacuum suction couch is also there, which is removing the major water which is not being removed on the wire part, that is being removed in the suction part. Then the roll is also there, press rolls, remaining portion of the water we are removing in the press rolls where the simple pressing is there, and after the press roll there may be the number of press rolls also. So after the press roll the paper that is being transferred to dryer, where the dryer we are using steam for drying the paper, and depending upon the type of the paper, grammage, variation in the speed of the machine that may be there, because now we are having the high speed machine also there, very high speed machine. Earlier it used to be lower speed of the machine, but now we are having the higher speed of the machine also. So dryer part that has to be adjusted accordingly depending upon the speed of the machine, at the same time of the drainage of the pulp, that is the stock preparation part, that is why it is playing important role, because the furnace pulp which you are getting for paper making, it should be the good drainage, so that the maximum removal of the water is at the wire part, and then the MF MG cylinders are there, then finally reeling, cutting, all those activities are there in case of the, that is the finishing house, that also called the first part is stock preparation, paper making, and then the finishing house where the packaging of the or the rolls of the paper, different type of the requirement depending on the requirement that is there. Just like if you take the case of Xerox paper, bond paper, sizing, sometimes the at the finishers end, the consumers end also some of the activity that is being done. Now come to the some detail of the Fourdrinier machine, because that is very important. The wire part consists of the endless wire to support the weak wave, because the weak wave means the pulp which are getting and drain out water, because this is maximum, as I told, the maximum removal is taking place at the wire part, and the amount of the water that is available, because we are feeding the pulp at 0.5 to 0.6% consistency through the machine chest. So the drainage of the rest, the remaining of the, and I told you that earlier also that in case of the paper making, we are using huge amount of the water. We start with the dry raw material, chips or the hardwood or any material, and then we are adding at 10 different points water, removing it. Sometimes it is 1% consistency, sometimes it is 10% consistency, sometimes even the scented cleaners also we need the lower consistency for this better cleaning efficiency. So this is how the water, that is the maximum water, that is the pulp at a 0.5 to 0.6% consistency means 99.5 gram water and 0.5 gram of pulp in 100 gram pulp. So that is the definition of the consistency. This is a very common term we are using in case of the pulp and paper making, that is we call it the consistency. So 0.5 to 0.6% consistency pulp, that is going to the wire part. Such a huge amount of the water is removed on the wire part, press section and the dry section. About 97% of the water is removed on the wire part, 1.5% on the press section, and about 1.0% by the DAB. So, this will actually again this percentage is not exactly that, there may be variation in the, but maximum removal has to be on the wire part of the machine. This is a typical machine which I was telling, and then you are seeing this is the wire part. This is the wire part where the pulp is at a low consistency, 0.5% consistency. It is evenly distributed over this part, and these are the supports. Various rolls are there on which the wire part is supported, and after this is suction couch is there where we are applying vacuum for removal of the remaining water, which is not, because here you see the drainage property of the pulp, that is very important. That is why the beating and refining, they are very important part, and the smoothness of the paper which you are making on the wire part. So, after this it is being transferred to the dryer part. These are the dryer cylinder, number of the dryer cylinders will be there, where the paper is being dried using the steam. So, the steam consumption, that is also very important, and so this whole machine running of the wire, running of the press part, running of the dryer, that is synchronized continuously, and the machine they are operating at a very high speed. Machines are there, because now the earlier used to be 200-ton machine, or the single even I remember in Orient paper we used to have the 7 machines for producing only 200 tons. Now you will have the many of the machines are producing 400, 500 or even up to 1000 ton capacity machines are there, single machines where we are producing that high amount of the paper. So, this is how the, because you will have to increase the speed also. This is the 4 denier machine which I told you earlier, that the combined 4 denier and the mold machines are there. This already I have discussed about the 4 denier machine, but these are the some of the other parts of the 4 denier machine. Dandy rolls and shake are used to improve the seed formation, because the removal of the water on the wire part, that is very important. Shake helps in the improving the evenness of the fiber, because the fiber has to be distributed on the wire part, which improves the physical property. Drainage of the free stock is retarded by shake, particularly in the forming zone, which improves the formation, because we cannot afford to lose the fiber also. So, that is also very important. This dandy roll is also used for water marking. You must have the water mark. It also smoothens the top surface of the paper. It helps in breaking froth bubbles. It also makes a sheet more dense and compact, which is the requirement of a good paper. This is the table rows which I showed you, that while the wire part we are having the number of table rows which is supporting the wire part. So, firstly to support the wire part and to create vacuum at outgoing nip, this tends to pull water from the web. Water is also removed by surface tension, water is removed by gravity flow and the micro. These are the some of the actually the separation that is taking place because of the, it may be surface tension, it may be the gravity flow or the micro vacuum. Suction boxes, because there we are applying the vacuum for removal of the remaining water, because 100% removal that may not be possible. So, we need this vacuum for removal of the remaining water in case of the, so suction boxes number that again may vary. These boxes are connected with a vacuum pump. The suction boxes remove a good part of the remaining water, at the same time compact the sheet. Suction couch, about 2 to 3% water is removed by suction couch, where high vacuum is applied. A lump breaker roll is normally used to make the sheet more compact. When web leaves the couch roll, it carries about 1.8 to 2 dryness, that is there. The next step, that is the press part. The next step is to remove the moisture from the web by mechanical means, by process of pressing the web. That is the formation of the sheet which we are getting after distribution wire part, that we call it the web. Process of pressing the web without affecting the quality of the paper and board. So, the now earlier we used to have the woolen felt for supporting the paper, now we are having the synthetic felt, because the felt which we are using for supporting, that is very important, and lot of the development that has taken place in that, because the quality of the, that is also affecting the smoothness of the paper, your paper. Three types of the process are normally used: plain press, suction press and reverse press. Other modern presses are groove press, unipress, trini press. So, these are the some of the development that has taken place in the case of the press part. I was telling about the felts are used for carrier of the water resistant instrument and rubber rolls. As the paper web leaves the press section, it carries about 35 to 40% of the solid. So, rest of the moisture that is being removed in the your dryer part. So, that is also giving the support. Now come to the dryer part of the machine, because that is very important and continuously, because the wire part, transfer of the wire part to the press part and press part to the dryer part, that is continuous operation is there. So, the continuous running of the any breakage, that will affect the whole running of the machine, and lot of the losses are incurred when the breakage of the paper is there due to some or other reason. So, web leaving the press section contains 35 to 40% solid. The remaining water from the web is removed by steam dryer. In drying, the sheet is passed around the cylinders and held in intimate contact with the heated surface by means of a dryer felts. Here also, in case of the dryer, we are using the felt for supporting the paper, where by use of steam we are drying, the moisture is removed, and finally the paper is ready for the use. The number of cylinders and its arrangement in various sections is determined by the following factors, which I told you: the basis weight of the set, because we call it the basis weight, means the weight of the 1 square meter of the paper. So, gram weight of the paper, sometimes in the very common word, gram weight of the paper, weight of the water to be evaporated, speed of the machine, pressure of the steam in various section, any fluctuation in the quality of the steam, that will also affect the. So, these are the some of the parameters which affect and the requirement in case of the good running of the or good working of the dryer. The dryer section are divided in 4 or 5 groups depending upon the size of the machine, because the dryer part is less in case of the Yankee, but in case of the 14 machine or the board machine, that dryer part, that may be a longer dryer part that may be required. So, this is a remaining portion, as I told you, in the dryer part that we are removing. In the conventional method of drying, the sheet is passed around the cylinder and held in the intimate contact with the heated surface, and the number of the cylinders which I told you, these are the factors: the basis weight of the sheet, weight of the water to be evaporated, speed of the machine and pace of the steam in the various sections. Now come to the another development, that the some of the machine they are having the Yankee cylinder, which is called, is a large drying cylinder, generally 12 to 8 feet large diameter is there, and it is the single dryer part is there. It has a very high polished surface also, against which the sheet is pressed by 1 or more press. The drying cylinder is generally unclothed. The Yankee cylinder was developed to impart a high smooth finish to one side of the sheet, hence the term machine glaze or the MG paper applied to the paper. Calendering, sometimes this calendering, that is very important. After the sheet is dried, it is passed through a stack of heavy metal rolls where it is calendered under high pressure. Calendering effect, due to the calendering effect, the smoothness is there. The purpose of the calendering is to smooth down the felt and wire parts, and to remove the cockles and to develop the lumpy formation, and to make the sheets of uniform caliper, because that is very important in case of the paper. So, that smoothens the surface of the paper. finally the paper which is made, that is going to the railing section, the final paper and board having because some inherent moisture will be always there in the paper, but lower moisture always, you cannot remove 100%. This is the requirement. Sometimes you find the moisture in the paper, you see the moisture absorption is always there. Sometimes even the xeroxing machine, you will finding that sometimes problem is there, and they normally they say that this is wet paper, and because of that the problem is there. So the final paper, some moisture will be there, the empty shell on which the paper and board of real sheets rests on the drum and driven by the virtue of the surface friction between them. The full roll of the paper or board is removed by crane or rewinder, because the one roll huge amount of the paper that will bind it, and so that has to be removed by crane. This is the another development in case of the when we are making the triplex or duplex board. So the cylindrical mold machines we are using here, cylindrical mold machine differs from the 14-year machine by replacing the 14-year wire part by a cylindrical mold. And the mold that is being used and where the mat formation is there. Cylindrical machine made use of the cylindrical structure which support the forming wire mesh. Stock is supplied to the outside of the roll. This is used for making paper board. So this is a typical board. So here the actually this is the pulp slurry is there, and this will be the transfer of the pulp sheet, that is the paper, web paper that is on the felt, and continuously, because if you want to increase the if in two mold that will be different type of the pulp here, so 2 layers of the pulp that will be made, because 1 layer here, again I can another layer that may be, so it may be 4 to 6 cylinders that may be there, and finally the board or the paper that will go for the dyeing purpose. So uniflow cylinders that may be there, counterflow cylinders that may be there. So both the type of the mold cylinder that we are using. In mold machine, the stock is picked up on the wire covered cylinder mold and then transferred to a felt which carried to, as I told you, on the felt on the wire mold machine, the felt that is continuously taking the web part of the pulp, and that is transferred from one cylinder to another cylinder. This process is repeated until a multiply board of the several price is obtained. That is what needed, duplex board, triplex board. From the cylinder mold, the board passes to the same stage as that of the 4D machine, that is the press section, dash section, and the calendar section, and the reeler section. These are the, let us come to the final part of the, because as I told you earlier that the paper making is a art. Quality of the paper, that is totally depending upon the caliber of the people who are there, smooth running of the machine, quality of the paper. So some of the tests which are very important for the day-to-day variation, day-to-day, because the quality of that is being strictly monitored by the consumers also, because normally the paper to the stockholders which is going to, they are controlling these parameters, because sometimes suppose you take the first basic weight, the weight of the paper per square meter. If the variation the weight is there, their requirement is 60 GSM. If the uniformity of the GSM is not there, definitely the total weight tonnage in terms of the weight they will be losing, and so this is the what why the basis weight the ground and the normally writing paper that is around 50 to 60 GSM, tissue paper that is below 30, board paper that may be 300, 400 GSM. Thickness or caliper, that is the thickness of the paper between two circular plane surface that we are measuring, and thickness that is very important. Folding endurance that is required for the board, because that the suitability of the paper in use to stand repeated bending or the folding, because suppose the board is there and if you are folding it, it should not crack. That is the basic requirement in case of the many packaging. Brightness of the paper, percentage of the reflectance of the paper when incident light is falling. So, brightness of the paper, as I told you earlier, while bleaching there is a lot of the improvement in the bleaching, because now our requirement of the brightness, high brightness paper is there. Bursting strain, it is used to measure the resistance to rupture. Tensile strain, it is measured in terms of the force per unit width requirement to break specimen, and percentage elongation at the break. This is the from the tensile, because all the, we are having the different machine for measuring different properties. Breaking length, it is strength to weight ratio indicating length of the strip of the paper to cause strip to break under its own weight. So, these are the some of the properties, they are very important in case of the board or the white paper. Breaking length, it is strength to weight ratio indicating the length of the strip of the paper. Tear strength, this is the ratio of the tearing strength to basis. Cobb test for packing material, the test is useful to determine the ability of the packing material to protect the contents of the package from the dampness. So, these are the some of the properties required for the testing, and the closely it is being monitored in the paper mill itself and at the consumer end also, because all the big dealers, they are continuously monitoring the quality of the paper. Any variation in the quality, that is going to affect the end uses of the paper. So, this was the brief about the paper making process, how the paper from the pulp, from the chips to conversion of the forest raw material, star, the bagar, the final paper making.